Well. Joe Biden is expected to address the nation within about the next 12 minutes, 13 minutes here. They are currently interviewing Alan here, and Alan actually attended a dinner or a sort of a Hampton fundraiser event with Joe Biden apparently this weekend. He's talking about here how he's 90 and age shouldn't matter as to whether or not you, invest in a president. And he calls Trump a coherent liar, and Biden, someone who had an incoherent night, but who isn't a liar. And the host here responded is like, well, they both lied. And he's like, one lied 4 times, one lied 28 times. What? Yeah, and again, everybody's, over here counting lies. I always think it's funny when politicians are calling each other liars because remember the one way you could tell when a politician is lying is when their mouth is moving. But anyway, let's listen to this person just for a brief moment here. Biden should be up within 10, 15 minutes. Usually they're late, so we'll see.
And it's the most exciting growth area, and everybody needs products, and everybody is going to need some kind of caregiving, and they're going to need some kind of end-of-life services, and they're going to need one of our companies, which you didn't call out, Kitsugi, which is helping people who have mental problems and to tell
There
it.
you go. Yeah, okay. We'll flip around here a little bit, and we'll see what some other folks are saying. The big thing that folks are paying attention to now is it looks like there was a phone call with Jill Biden with Vogue. So we're going to take a peek at this right here briefly. Jill Biden backs husband after brutal debate, tells Vogue we will continue to fight. So apparently Vogue got a phone call with Jill Biden on the 30th while they were at Camp David, where the family was together for the weekend. And she told Vogue that they will, quote, not let those 90 minutes define the 4 years of the president, that we will continue to fight. This has led a lot of people to think that President Jill Biden really wants to keep her job. Others are suggesting that it's unfair to keep Joe Biden in this race. Some are saying Joe Biden's the best chance the Democrats have. Some people say, hey, why would Joe Biden give up? He'd rather lose in an election than just walk away. There seems to be some stubbornness going on. We'll obviously see Joe Biden address the nation here within the next, 10, 20 minutes, whenever they're up. It's supposed to be on the Supreme Court and Trump. We'll see if there's anything else that's being addressed. Who knows? So we'll get that within the next 10, 15 minutes here. Let's briefly listen in here again.
Interaction with people to bring them out of their shells, whether they're in senior facilities or they're in home alone. So, I mean, people are coming up with ideas.
Yeah, and you're funding it and doing great work.
Keep in mind, this guy's 90. He's a Biden donor, and he doesn't see age as the problem. Which, in fairness, I don't think a lot of people see age as the problem. Warren Buffett's 98 or something like that, and there are a lot of capable older folks. I think the concerns Americans have are, hey, is somebody actually going to be capable of running the country, and do they have their mental faculties amongst them to actually perform? So we'll see. Anyway, we're flipping around here while we wait for the address to begin. So we'll flip around a little and listen in while we wait.
Possibility that's been floated of Joe Biden being replaced by someone else, perhaps someone younger, potentially someone who may seem like a tougher opponent to Team Trump. Is there concern?
No, it's more like elation at the fact that Democrats are tearing themselves apart at what Trump world thinks is an unlikely scenario and thereby damaging President Biden. That is, the folks in Trump's orbit, from Donald Trump on down, say, look, not only does Joe Biden have the delegates to be the nominee under the rules, he also has the money. Joe Biden is the candidate who has the campaign structure and
Yeah, in fairness, this is an argument I've heard before where people say, oh, but Joe Biden already has the fundraising. His super PACs already have the fundraising. It's entirely possible for fundraising in one super PAC to move to another. I don't really see that as a stand-in to keeping Joe Biden versus somebody else. While we wait for Biden to respond to the Supreme Court issue, I'll quickly jump into the editorial board of the New York Times. They published their piece. They say in a a stunning finale to its term on Monday morning. The Supreme Court delivered a gift to Donald Trump. 6-3 ruling absolute immunity on certain things, that is, official acts central to presidency, and other acts by a president have presumptive immunity. And the immediate question, one of the most consequential ever produced by the court on the subject of presidential powers and constitutional government, was to delay the prosecution of Trump until after the election. Yeah, this is absolutely the immediate effect. Nobody actually expects the discovery that's needed will get done between now and the election. And then, of course, you've got appeals to get through. All that nonsense is going to take years. But the New York Times editorial board, which did call on Joe Biden to step down, writes here, as of Monday, the bedrock principle that no one is above the law has been set aside. In the very week that the nation celebrates its founding, the court undermined the reason for the American Revolution by giving presidents what one dissenting justice called a law-free zone. Now, I've read this and I've been reading the arguments of the dissent. Really, the idea is that, if you give the president all of this immunity, they could go do anything they want. But the reality is, if a president does something that's so removed from their powers and weaponizes their power, you're now violating the very protection that you have. And then you become subject to congressional impeachment, to sanction from the judicial system or otherwise. Now, AOC thinks that providing a president immunity is a high crime and misdemeanor for the justice, for the head of the justice system, basically, the Supreme Court. AOC has argued that she wants to file articles of impeachment. Look at this. The Supreme Court has become consumed by a corruption crisis beyond its control. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. It's up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian capture. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. I write here, the Supreme Court makes a ruling AOC doesn't like. She threatens to impeach them for high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the only way you could actually impeach the Supreme Court. Remember that. That's the only way you can impeach the Supreme Court, is if they've committed high crimes and misdemeanors. If there's something you disagree with, that's okay. AOC, it is okay for you to disagree. You could have a different opinion. There's just a way to handle this in the political process. And it's called Congress getting together and passing a new law or constitutional amendment. That's how you deal with the checks and balances in our country. If you don't like how a judge ruled, you pass a law to fix the problem. This is why so many people are like, yo, when is Congress going to actually file some laws on crypto, so judges can follow those laws rather than just try to make law themselves. So that's your job, AOC. But to threaten impeachment, which again is a high crimes and misdemeanor claim against the Supreme Court, seems a little loony. But then again, AOC and loony sometimes go together. Again, you could disagree with the opinion of what the Supreme Court did here. Look, the New York Times editorial board, they disagree with the Supreme Court decision, and we're about to hear Joe Biden discuss it as well. But that doesn't mean there isn't a proper way to deal with it. So waiting now, we're about 4 minutes away from when we're expecting to hear Joe Biden address the nation. So we're told it's supposed to be on the Supreme Court ruling. We'll see what else it's about. We'll see if there are any questions. As you can see, there's the lectern set up, an iconic spot, or iconic shot, I should say. Anyway, the New York Times editorial board keeps going here, saying, prior to this decision, there was no grant of criminal immunity to presidents, though the authors of the Constitution gave a form of that privilege to members of Congress, and declined to do so for the chief executive. And we've seen this before. We talked in my video about how this is not surprising that as this question comes up, you're getting some form of immunity, because you have that amongst most officials who are working on behalf of the capacity of the government, law enforcement officers and otherwise. And so it is really interesting that this wasn't more predicted, and it seems like there's more outrage over this. Of course, a lot of folks are saying, oh, well, the conservative justices have weaponized the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts let's take a look at the line here, tried to dismiss the concerns about the implications of the court's ruling by saying that the president enjoys no immunity from his unofficial acts, and not everything the president does is official. The president is not above the law. I mean, that's fair. Realistically, I think somebody's president working on their official capacity, if they do something in their official capacity that Congress or the justice system disagrees with that, there are still manners of dealing with that. So, but anyway, we'll see what Joe Biden has to say here. Thank you so much for this, Tyrone. Thank you so much. We got a $9.99 donation there. Thanks for the coverage. Consider a donation future presidential. Oh, well, thank you for that. We've got a $99 donation here. My goodness. If Biden doesn't pull out, it means they have selected Trump to win. It's all theater. Divide and conquer. It's... I'm pretty convinced myself that if Biden doesn't pull out, this is a guaranteed Trump victory. Biden addresses the nation at a scheduled 4:45, Cali, 7:45 Eastern. There we go. Throw that up on screen. Okay, so it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, as you could see, teleprompters are in place, so Joe should be good. It is also a little on the later side. So, I think they're trying to address the sundowning. To help let's see here. What do we want to say about this? Let's listen to them for a moment.
Response to the Supreme Court's decision on the immunity case, voting 6-3 along partisan lines. The majority opinion written by the Chief Justice, giving immunity, pretty broad immunity, for official acts as president. We are likely to hear a lot of comments from President Biden that go along the dissenting views from Justice Sotomayor and others. Here's the president of the United States, I believe, coming down that's the setup. The guy's just ready to walk out in just a moment. But Jason, it's likely going to, as you were just mentioning, be a moment that this White House can take to deal with this ruling, as opposed to talking about the implications and fallout from last week's debate. That has been quite something to see in Democratic circles, as you've been talking about.
Yeah, I think the boogeyman that they want in the election is going to be the Supreme Court. I mean, their rulings, I think that's what they're going to try to do focus their attention at this point.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that ruling is that it also provides immunity for President Biden, should he be sued for illegal immigration, for Afghanistan, for something else. Here's the President of the United States.
The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that can test your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency. This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law. Not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what a president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle, and it's a dangerous precedent, because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights, to taking away a woman's right to choose, to today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation. Nearly 4 years ago, my predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it with our own eyes. We sat there and watched it happen that day. Attack on the police, the ransacking at the Capitol, a mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence. I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day. And the American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th before they are asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people have to do what the courts should have been willing to do, but will not. The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. You know, at the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, that defined the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute, and that power always resides with the people, always. Now, over 200 years later, today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it will depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential powers I have for 3.5 years, but any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. So should the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you.
That's
may
it.
God protect our troops.
Why are the best Democrats to beat Trump?
What makes you so confident you should be the president?
It's addressing the Supreme Court ruling. Let's bring
Name. Okay, well, that's all we got. We got Biden addressing the Supreme Court ruling, basically calling it dangerous, suggesting that the Supreme Court is conducting more damage, overturning principles of limited power and principles or rulings like Roe versus Wade, suggesting that if you trust Trump, you're basically giving power to a king and you're emboldening Trump to do whatever he wants. The power should be limited and not absolute, and that no one is above the law. This is a very common strategy from the Biden admin to argue that a Trump presidency would mean a Trump dictatorship, that Donald Trump won't ever step down, that basically there's a dynastic power of Donald Trump will come in. No mention here whatsoever as to whether or not Joe Biden would continue his campaign or not. I thought at the very least there might be by the way, I'm staying in this fight or something like that, but apparently the teleprompter didn't give that suggestion. So this is all we got. We got a little bit more hurry up and wait. We are on July 1st. We're 3 days away from July 4th. I think if there were to be a transition of the Biden administration, we would hear about it on July 4th. But you never know what's going to be said. So I guess that's it. We got a very brief, about 5-minute presentation from Biden, essentially complaining that now power in a president has been extended, and that Donald Trump, if he's elected, could be emboldened. Again, no comments here on whether or not Joe Biden would stay in the race. We also had really no question session, which is not uncommon, that Joe Biden kind of just U-turns out of there because the questions aren't pre-scripted, so they get them out of there really quickly. Anyway, right now, if we just look at the latest Real Clear Politics betting odds and the predicted betting odds, we can see here that Donald Trump right now does have a lead of about 57 cents or percent, you could say, over Joe Biden at 33 cents. Newsom's sitting about 10 cents. If I throw Harris in here as well, I've got Harris at about 7 cents. This is unpredicted. But Biden's sitting at just 31 cents with Trump at 56. Going to the betting odds for U.S. president over here on Real Clear Politics, you could see a substantial movement on the right here. You could see Biden hit a new low of 19.5% on the Real Clear Politics betting average. So step down or not, right now it looks like the Biden team is convinced. They're not making any announcements yet at this point. Jill obviously spoke with Vogue and suggested that they're not planning on, they're planning on staying in this fight. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't stay in the fight and support another candidate. So I don't think it's game over for thinking there could be a transition. I still think there should be a transition. In fact, I have gone as far as saying that if Joe Biden is not replaced, you will end up having 12 years of Republican power. That's because I believe Donald Trump will win against Joe Biden. I don't think after that debate performance, seeing Joe Biden without a teleprompter is a president that I can have faith in. In fact, I am nervous for our national security right now because now you've got somebody who's not operating. You've got a team around him who's operating for him, and I don't know who those people are. So it's not people elected, right? Anyway, so I think that Donald Trump against Biden wins for 4 years, and then absent a recession, if, say Donald Trump fires Jerome Powell and rates are cut more rapidly, whatever, sure, it could inflate a bubble, don't get me wrong, but you could actually have a boom for 4 years, long enough to install another Republican president, potentially or elect, I should say, for another 8 years. But I just think the momentum of the economy will actually lead people to vote for that. So I think Democrats are making a substantial mistake here. The betting odds clearly aren't believing that Joe Biden is really going to stay in this fight. Donald Trump has a 34.8% spread over Joe Biden in the betting odds for via Real Clear Politics and over on Predicted. The spread isn't as wide, but it's about 25%. Now, if you go to the latest polls as well, you could see that some new polls have come out. Most of these showing Trump well in the lead here. In fact, you could see here the general election Harvard-Harris poll shows Trump with a 4-point lead. The general election Harvard-Harris Trump-Biden versus Kennedy poll puts Trump well in the lead. General election via Morning Consult puts Trump 1 in the lead. You've got, this is a different race. I'm just mostly looking for the general election races here. Now, what I'd like to know is if this Morning Consult poll was conducted, let's see here, what is this nonsense? Let's find out here. I want to find out when this Morning Consult poll was done. General election Morning Consult poll. Again, no announcement here from Donald Trump, or from Joe Biden. Trump inches ahead of it. Okay, I'm not sure if the New York Post is referencing this. Morning Consult poll released Monday. Yeah, there it is. Okay, let me see if I can get, yeah, no, this is it. Okay, the survey was actually conducted this weekend. Take a look at this. So this is the Morning Consult poll that they just released, and it does say the latest surveys were conducted the 28th through the 30th, and they still put Trump in the lead on this Morning Consult poll. You have Trump leads Biden after debate between all voters right here. Democrats, let's see here, 87% Joe Biden, only 5% someone else on that Morning Consult poll. Independents really pushing larger for somebody else with 18% pushing for someone else. And out of the 2020 voters, 9% of Biden 2020 voters are looking for somebody else. Not actually as wide of a spread as you might expect there from this morning consult poll. Anyway, so there is the address from Joe Biden. I've got a little banner running here that suggests that if you need life insurance that is as good for you as it is for Joe Biden, go to metkevin.com/life. You can Apple Pay or Android Pay for it. Sign up in as little as 5 minutes. It's super easy to sign up for, and it's what Lauren and I use. It's pretty awesome. metkevin.com/life. Super easy to sign up for. It's a paid partner and affiliate of the channel. But anyway, I'm going to look for some quick reaction here to see if what reaction we might have. Let's see here.
His oath of office when he destroyed the southern border and allowed 11 million, 10 million people illegally to enter the United States. There's a lot of people who felt that that was a violation.
No, it doesn't look like we're going to get any kind of real analysis here from anyone else that's going to provide some comments here. No analysis yet elsewhere. Again, if you're just now joining, quick, simple recap. No mention from Biden as to whether or not he would stay in the fight. Jill did mention that on Vogue, on an interview with Vogue yesterday, but we don't have that official statement from Biden yet. We simply got this statement that this is not a nation of kings. Power should be limited and not absolute. If you trust Trump now, he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he wants. Trump sent a violent mob to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it. And we're getting more damage from the Supreme Court, just like with Roe v. Wade being overturned. No one is above the law until today. All of those are phrases from Joe Biden. So we'll see. But again, no insights here from Joe Biden on whether or not he would stay in the race or not. No questions answered. Simply a statement on kings and violence. And that's it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good luck.